Alright, so today we are going to be taking a look at the Upper Iowa River, which is right along the Iowa-Minnesota border. The trip that we're looking at is about 126 miles, starting in Lime Springs, Iowa, and going all the way to the Mississippi River. Just to kind of outline where this river goes, we start in Lime Springs, paddle to Granger, down to Kendallville, down through Bluffton, down to Decorah, and things kind of go back up north here. You wind up dumping into the Mississippi up here, paddle down past DeSoto, and then wind up in Lansing. So that's kind of a general overview of the trip. The river is a lot more twisty than this, so it's actually closer to 126 miles, not 70, but that is the general route that we will follow. So to start off, we begin in the town of Lime Springs. Lime Springs is this little town down here, but then the river launches actually a bit further north up here. Basically, in Lime Springs, there's a tiny little dam down here. There's a boat launch on the other side, and then there's a park where we can leave cars. I've gotten permission for that already. So once we launch, we start going up the river here. You'll see that it kind of goes north, actually crosses over the Iowa-Minnesota border a couple of places as we keep moving along. First town up is going to be the town of Granger, and that's about 13 miles into the trip right here. Then as the river moves on, you'll see it starts going back down south and goes through the town of Kendallville. Kendallville's at about the 30-mile marker. And it just kind of keeps twisting and turning through here. Keeps going back and forth. And then you find yourself by the town of Bluffton. There's a bunch of campsites around it. No dams or portages quite yet, but Bluffton is right around the 43-mile marker. And as we keep going, the river kind of cuts back north-south, but keeps moving west generally. And as you can see here, this is going to be the biggest town that we'll come into. That's the town of Decorah. Honestly, it's going to be a bit of a city compared to everything else that we're going to run into. But yeah, that's the downtown area. That's at about the 60-mile marker when you come into town, and that's about 65 miles once you are exiting town down here. Now, the nice thing with this area is at about halfway through our trip, 60 miles or so, there's a Walmart Supercenter that's right off the river right here. So that's the ideal place to basically restock on supplies as need be. You know, provided we could also do like a gas station or some other restaurants in the area as need be, but we do have the option to refill on supplies, food and water, about halfway through the trip. So we'll leave there and keep going. The river's going to start cutting back north again, and then eventually it'll cut back south. Now, right around the 73-mile marker is going to be the upper dam, which we will find. Oops, I think I lost the river. Alright, there she is again. Kind of blends in with the satellite there. Oh, well, looks like I totally skipped over the dams. I'll circle back to that in a moment, but basically here's where the river ends. Where the river goes into the Mississippi is the 118-mile marker, so from there there's about 8 miles to go. Once it goes into the Mississippi, keeps going south, you kind of follow the river and avoid all these little side islands, but you pass the town of DeSoto, and then you keep going. DeSoto's at 122 miles. And DeSoto doesn't really have a great boat launch or parking, so that's why we're going to keep going to Lansing. Once you get to Lansing, you can see there's a lot more in town here. Where I have permission to park and leave cars is going to be at the sports complex right off the river. There's the town hall right there, and then they got parking surrounding it, so we got availability to leave cars there. And then in terms of an ending dock, there's a couple of restaurants here that I'm still needing to get permission from to make sure we can pull boats out. I don't think it's going to be a problem, especially late in the season, but basically we can just pull up to any of these docks, pull out, and go from there. The alternative is before we hit this big bridge, there is a marina up here, so we can use that as a possible exit point as well too. So that's kind of the general overview of the Upper Iowa River. Let me scoot back and see if I can find those dams on satellite. Basically the dams, so we go through the town, that's about 60-65 miles. Dams are at mile markers 73 and then 77.6. So depending on where we're at in a day, we'll hit both of them in the same day or possibly split it in the middle there. Let's see if we can find it. It's not Dorchester. Alright, there's Freeport again. So let me zoom back in on this and see if I don't lose it this time. Alright, here we go. Okay, so here's one of the dams. This will be, I believe it's the lower dam actually, and pretty much it's a simple portage where on the map you just kind of go up and over this hill off to the left right here. Go up, come back down, that's it. Off to the right there's not really much there, and it's kind of overgrown. Now the interesting thing is with this section of the river there's obviously this loop that goes around, but it looks like you can cut through on the side right here and basically shave off half a mile by going that route. So that is the upper dam, even though the lower dam is actually further south than the upper dam. Yes, upper river, lower river. But here's the other dam. Pretty simple portage. Basically you get out up here, follow the road, and then get back in on the path right there. So it's a simple boom, 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 over and back. 0.13 miles. Piece of cake. So those are the two portages on the Upper Iowa River, and that's kind of our general overview here.